And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting edition of Freedom here on Independent Talk, 1100 KFNX, with me, your humble host, Steve Gates. A hearty welcome on this Memorial Day weekend. Mr. Prager, thank you for joining us on the Call to Right show. How are you this morning, sir?
I'm well, and thank you for having me on the show.
Privilege and honor, sir. Let's go right to it in the short time we have with you today. Talking about the PPP program, what it is, how people can navigate through the myriad of paperwork. And please talk a little bit about what this means to people out there so they can understand it in the simplest of English.
Okay. Well, I wanted to start off by saying that small business owners shouldn't believe the hype that PPP loans are only for the big guy. Mm-hmm. I was looking at the statistics the other day. 78% of the approved loans are for loans under $100,000. And there have been already 2.8 million separate loans that were made at amounts of under $50,000. So don't be scared by those news stories talking about $2 million, $5 million, and $10 million loans.
Yes, sir.
Other point I wanted to make is loans are still available. As of a few days ago, there was still $100 billion left to be lent out. Loans are available for not just corporations, but anybody who's an independent contractor. So if you're a personal trainer, a masseuse, a hairstylist, some nurses and truck drivers, Uber drivers, you're eligible for a PPP loan. And the beauty of these PPP loans is if they're used for approved purposes, they will be forgiven. So it's not just a loan under the right circumstances. It's a grant from the federal government.
Is this unprecedented in American history? Have we ever had a program such as this? And if we have, when was it?
Well, I'm afraid I'm not a historian.
Okay.
I'm not aware of a program like this. Certainly nothing on this scale. Certainly nothing that I can recall during my practicing career, which has been about 40 years. So if there is anything, it's in the distant past.
So quickly, how do I start the process? I'm a business. I'm down and out on my luck here because of this COVID-19 virus. It's now coming up to June 2020, and I think a lot of Americans may not even realize the power of what this can do to help small business.
Well, the easiest place to start is at the bank you bank at, especially if it's a small community bank. There's a reasonably good chance that they'll be able to take your application and help you along with it and get it all filled out and get the funds approved. If you're having problems with your bank, my next stop would be the credit union. The credit unions have been doing a great job in this latest round of funding in helping people get through the application process. I understand that the application itself can be daunting. There are a lot of questions on it, a lot of financial information. So you want to make sure you have your records in good shape. Make sure you know what your payroll costs are. Get
Exactly.
out your quarterly tax returns, because that's what all this is based upon. The amount of your loan, essentially speaking, is based upon, or the equivalent of 2.5 months of your payroll costs. So you want to start with that. Take a look at the application. Yes, I know it's daunting, but just go through it word by word and do your best to answer the questions to the best of your ability.
A lot of people, if you can define this in a little more specific terms, you can be what? An individual independent contractor? Can it be a business with just a few employees? Describe a little more about that.
Sure. It can be a business with one employee. It can be a business with no employees other than yourself. The way the numbers are calculated, though, generally speaking, the more employees you have, the more you're paying your employees, the larger the amount of the loan is going to be.
Understood.
Again, you take a look at your 2019 payroll. How much did you pay for all of your employees, including yourself, and calculate what that amount is for 2.5 months. And in simple terms, that's the amount of your loan.
Right. But when we say, is it truly a loan, sir, or is this something where there are certain categories where you do not, and specific situations, simply a loan, or where there's forgiveness of the loan and you simply don't have to pay it back?
Well, absolutely the latter. The loan can be forgiven. And basically, first of all, you've got to spend the money within 8 weeks of the day you get it, and it must be spent on payroll, rent, or utilities. Mm-hmm. Those are the broad categories.
Okay.
And 75% of it must be spent on payroll costs. And that includes not only the checks that you write to the employees,
Right.
It also includes payments for their health care benefits. It includes sick pay. It includes contributions to their retirement plan. So that's all payroll costs. And again, you can use up to 25% for rent and utilities, things like telephone, internet service, auto lease payments if the automobile is used in a business. And as long as you use it for those items, and as long as you get it out the door in 8 weeks, that loan is going to be forgiven. So it turns from a loan into a grant.
As a former IRS attorney, what advice would you give them? Obviously, you need to keep pretty meticulous records on this, right? Because this is the first time in a long time where the government is pumping money into something. And I have heard where this has been abused. Is that correct, sir, from what we know so far? But hardly, if any, just a few.
Yeah. In terms of records, first thing you want to keep in mind is you need to keep the records for 6 years.
Okay, that's important.
So that's a long time.
You bet.
And the kinds of things you're going to want to keep your hands on are your bank statements, all the employment tax returns, that's your 941s, your 940s.
Mm-hmm.
You want to keep copies of the checks and invoices for your expenses that the money is used for. So again, your payroll costs, your rent payments, your utility payments. You also want to keep a copy of your leases to show that they were entered into before February 15th of 2020.
Yes.
You want to keep all of that stuff. These days, most things are digital, so scan it and keep it on your computer. Keep a backup copy, maybe on a thumb drive, and have it.
Yes. Describe some of the things you can actually do for clients or that you work with every day, because it's not every day that we get someone who understands this program, and I'm sure if we had hours, we could go, of course, and do that. But I'm going to recommend that they go to BragerTaxLaw.com. But talk about some of the other services that you provide clients and some of the areas that you're so proud of.
Well, most of our work is representing individuals and companies who run afoul of the Internal Revenue Service.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
So if people, again, our companies are audited by the IRS and they need some help, anywhere from going through the audit to appealing it to, if necessary, going to court. That's something we do, every day of the week.
Yes.
And it's not just audits. Some people, unfortunately, get behind on their taxes. Mm-hmm. Tax returns don't get filed for years and years. Hard to believe, but I'm sure some of the people in the audience have gone through that experience. Maybe a divorce, maybe illness. You get off track. You don't file a return 1 year. And before you know it, 5 years have gone by, no tax returns, the taxes owed are huge. So we help people out getting either a payment plan or, in some cases, cutting a deal with the IRS for less than the full amount.
Well, I got one last couple for you, sir, before the clock runs out here. Many people out there have been looking for their $1,200 stimulus check. From your side of the chair, human to human, what do people need to do if they haven't gotten it?
Unfortunately, at this point, all you can do is keep checking the IRS's website. Unfortunately, the IRS is, first of all, overwhelmed.
Yes.
It's been understaffed for years, and now with the virus running around, they're trying to keep their employees safe. So there's not a whole, there's nobody to really talk to over there.
Yes.
So I would say, you need to be patient. And I know that's not the advice that people
That's hard for people to swallow, sir, but I guess that's what we have. But quickly, in a few moments, we have very few indeed. I want to first thank you for being here. Dennis Brager, former IRS attorney, a super lawyer. He, of course, can be reached at BragerTaxLaw.com, talking about the PPP program. I just wanted to, what are some of the tax deadlines that have been extended, if you can do in summation, so people understand what's really going on there?
Well, tax return filing and payment, and that's important. Mm-hmm. Filing and payment deadlines have been extended from April 15th through July 15th. So you can file and pay as late as July 15th with no penalties, no interest. Mm-hmm. If you can't get your tax return together by July 15th, you need to file for an extension before then. That'll give you till October 15th to file the return. But a key point is that an extension to file a tax return is not an extension to make a payment. So if you can't pay by July 15th, you're going to start running into, interest and penalties.
Wow. A very difficult time for Americans here. But again, I want to thank you, sir, for talking with us about this, a very important subject here. You get the final word. We have about a minute. In quick summation for the PPP program, your advice on how people can continue to learn how they can get, if they're eligible, funding from the government in this very bad situation with COVID-19.
I wanted to wrap up by saying that you need to keep track of the newest guidelines. Mm-hmm. New announcements are being made on literally a daily basis. Most of those announcements are borrower favorable, so the parameters continue to be expanded. Congress is talking about loosening even further the requirements for forgiveness on a loan. Mm-hmm. So I would say just stay informed.
Dennis Brigger, thank you for being the guest that we appreciate here in this program and hope that we can talk in detail. BriggerTaxLaw.com, ladies and gentlemen, to learn so much more. Our special guest.
1100 KFNX.